your local election headquarters.
Welcome back. Our panel this week, some familiar faces back with us. Happy to have them too. Diane Pierce of the Fresno City and County Republican Women Federated. Good to see you.
Thanks, Evan.
And Eric Payne, a State Center Community College District Board Trustee. Eric, how are you, man?
Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. I appreciate it. Guys, let's talk first. I thought this first little panel segment, we could talk about the legislation. There were so many bills, so many. A little behind the scenes, I come to them and I say, here guys, here's a couple articles, read through all the bills and tell me which ones you like. Yeah. And you're like, really? Read through all the bills? Yeah. There were so many of them, but we kind of picked out some that caught your eye a little bit. For example, one that caught your eye, and it's not one that's being talked about so much, Diane, is this conservatorship? I never say it correctly, but it's for people who are mentally ill and homeless, where basically the government, the cities can take a hold of them, legal hold of them. Why did that catch your eye? Is that something that you think is a good idea or a bad idea?
I think, without knowing all of the details of it, I think the concept is a good idea, because I think one of the problems we've seen in a variety of issues over the last many years has been the problem of mental health and people not getting the treatment that they really need and they deserve, frankly. I think that it became this concept of compassion for people, not to commit them to institutions, because that seemed terrible. And the idea then that they're just out in the community, and so many of them do become homeless and have drug addiction problems, and that I think this is an opportunity to be compassionate in getting them the care and the mental health treatment that they need. So I hope that that's really what it is looking to do, and as this pilot program proceeds, that maybe there's some bugs that they can work out, but maybe it can actually be a benefit to the entire state and maybe even beyond that. Yeah,
eventually. You mentioned the pilot program in these specific areas. It's not here in the Valley. It's only for some larger cities, San Francisco, LA, a couple of those, San Diego. And so we'll see what happens, because I think the bar is pretty high a lot of times if you're going to be forcing somebody into state care. You have to meet a certain threshold. This would lower that threshold a little bit and try to get some people help that they do need. Democrats and Republicans both supported this. Eric, what was something that stuck out to you that you were like, oh, that's interesting?
SB 826, which is women on corporate boards. I just think that it's a good bill, and I think that women are tired of asking for a seat at the table, and now they've decided to legislate their way to the table and demand that they enter into the man cave, because they have valuable opinions that they have to give in the governance structure.
This would basically require a corporate board to have a woman on the board. Two women on boards. Diane, what do you think about this? Because as a woman, I don't think you necessarily agree with this one.
I don't agree with it at all. I think, well, there's multiple parts of it. Number one, I don't think we need to legislate that type of thing. These are corporations, they're not government entities, and so to be legislating things on them, I don't think is the right way to go about it. But also, as a woman, if there was a corporate board that came to me last week and said, hey, we'd like to give you a seat on our board, I would actually feel pretty good about that. But if, next year they come and they say, well, hey, we don't have a chick on our board, and now we have to add a seat, and hey, how about you?
I would like to think that they wouldn't. I would like to think that they wouldn't put it that way, Diane.
But it's kind of condescending, I think. And one of the things I noticed in reading up on it is there was some sort of data that was brought forward that said corporations that have a woman on their board are financially better off. Well, I would think then
that they would automatically want to do that?
But it would kind of take care of itself at the end of the day. And the other thing, of course, too, is I don't see any data about how many women are, for lack of a better term, up for positions on these boards. A lot of times we create problems that don't exist with these types of things, and if there aren't a bunch of women that are looking for those positions or involved in those corporations or those industries, well, of course there's going to be a lack of female representation, but it's not because they're being discriminated against.
Derek, what do you think about some of those?
I I'll graciously disagree with her just because I think that oftentimes we are righting an institutional wrong. And these corporations.
I mean, this is affirmative action,
Yeah,
really. I mean, really, it's just
yeah.
another affirmative action.
Yeah, inclusion, equity, those are things that we need to be more intentional about, that we are bringing to the awareness of society, right? That we're inclusive in these processes.
There were some police accountability bills that some of them went forward and got signed, or I'm sorry, some of them went forward and passed, some of them were not passed. A couple of them that did pass are more transparency bills when it comes for police. One that got thrown out was the one that was going to raise the standards before police used deadly force. You know, it was going to make it, you know, they had to reach another threshold before they felt that they could do that. That one didn't happen. That one got shelved. One that is going forward, a couple bills, one would require police departments to release body camera footage that's being used, I think within 45 days if it's being used in an investigation. Another one would make investigation records public. California, people don't realize, you know, it's a liberal state, but it has some of the most pro-law enforcement friendly laws when it comes to buttoning up everything. This would open up some records showing wrongdoing if there was anything in there. What do you guys think about that?
I think the public has a right to know. I think that in this era of the Trump era, where we're citing fake news and all these other allegations against our media outlets, this gives validity to show cause in terms of some of the things that are taking place. There's documents. You know, these things are really happening.
Yeah, that's interesting. Diane, I guess the biggest thing that I always thought would have come to body cameras that police are wearing is that if we don't get to see them, if it's up to the police chiefs to determine when that comes out, but what's the point of them sometimes? Because I thought this was an accountability thing, or at least a transparency thing.
No, and I think that there's definitely validity to that, like you said. And I am a proponent of body cameras just in the sense of, you know what happened. It's not a he said, she said, he said, she said, she said, whatever.
And it's usually good for the police as well.
Yeah, it usually comes out in their favor, and I think it does give some accountability for their own actions, knowing it's on camera. But I do think you have to balance it with the investigative part of it. I don't know that setting a time frame, saying 45 days, where there's still an investigation ongoing. I think you do need to consider the victim and their families' opinions, because that's one thing to me. Yeah, it's just the idea that, heaven forbid it be something where a life was lost. I don't know that I would want that out there if it was a family member of mine, depending on the circumstances and what have you. So I think there's more to consider with it, but I could see where on its face it makes sense in the concept of releasing it. And kind of the same on the other too, with the public records of the investigation reports. It kind of depends on what's in there, what the investigation is about, what the victim or their family members might have to say about it as well.
I know which bill you really don't like. The 4 a.m. bar time bill, which would not affect Fresno or Clovis or anything. No cities in the valley. It's 9 other cities that might want to keep their bars open later. Why don't you like this? You're in the entertainment industry.
I know. Nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Didn't your mom tell you that?
It was midnight.
Well, see, I even already. Yeah, 2 a.m. is the new midnight. But now 4 a.m. is the new 2 a.m. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. It's like, why do we need these people out there? I just don't know.
But in San Francisco or LA, you're going out to West Hollywood where people don't eat dinner until 11 p.m. and then all of a sudden the bars are closing. I mean, that's the argument against it. Aaron, what do you think? Is there anything wrong with a 4 a.m.?
No, I think that there are a lot of responsible adults out there that know how to conduct themselves.
There's a lot that don't, though.
But those are going to be the same ones that are getting in trouble before 2 o'clock. So, it's, punish a few or, reward the...
This, like a lot of things, it's going to kind of be out there. People are going to be watching it closely. And they'll be looking at the statistics, and they're going to be looking at DWI offenses and perhaps, crashes that are caused. And they're going to be looking at the times and when things are sold and stuff like that. Absolutely. So I'll be curious to see where that goes. All right, guys, you guys hang out. We're going to talk about some more stuff here in just a little bit. But come